Hi everyone! Welcome to the professional level code review session. In this session, we'll go over some of the important points we're checking for technical interviews in Amazon, and more specifically, we'll demo the online assessment coding experience and answer any questions from the audience towards the end of the session. First of all, let the team introduce ourselves first. I'll go first. My name is Erica, and I'm a software developer on Amazon Seller Central Experience team. I've been in Amazon for 4.5 years. Before joining Amazon, I did my master's in USC, majored in electrical engineering. Then I joined Amazon directly out of school as a full-time software developer. I got involved into Amazon interview process about 2 years ago because I'm really interested into hiring the best for the company, and also my manager has been encouraging us to get more experience out of the process. I'm really excited to share the coding online assessment experience with everyone today. Craig, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Craig Moss. I'm a software development manager, and I've been at Amazon for 9 years. I also work on the Seller Central team with Erica. I actually went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, California. I started there as a journalism major, funny enough, and then switched my major into computer science. After graduating, I took a job with a local company doing programming for Department of Defense contracting. After that, several of my close friends at the company left to go work at Amazon, and they convinced me that I should do the same. So I interviewed and got a job, and here I am 9 years later. I will be helping Erica out today doing the Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A portion, and I will be collecting them and giving them to Erica at the end.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Craig. Now let's jump back to the slides. We want to talk about what is Amazon testing. So what kind of thing is Amazon hoping to get out of a candidate during an interview? So first of all is the problem state retention. We want the candidate to be able to understand the problem correctly. Then we expect the candidate to be a fluid coder using the coding language that he or she is most familiar with. For data structure applications, we don't expect you to know every single data structure, but we expect you to choose the proper data structure and algorithm to solve the problem. Then at the end of your interviewer usually will ask you to do some runtime complexity analysis based on your solution. For simplification, we don't expect you to come up with the optimal solution first, but you should be able to start from, for example, the brute force solution first, and start from there to simplify your solution. Next, we want to jump to what is Amazon not testing. We want to ensure that we don't expect deep knowledge of a specific language, because we trust you can ramp up with a new language quickly if asked in office based on your computer science knowledge. And we won't be asking about purposefully confusing or tricky questions during the interview. If you're not sure about something, the best thing you can do is to raise your questions with the interviewer immediately during your interview. Cool. And now we want to talk about HackerRank a little bit. I'm not sure if you have heard about it before, but this is the application that you'll be using during online assessment. And it's important to get familiar with all the features provided before your interview, like how to print standard out, how to print out arguments, how to pass custom input, how to see compile errors, how to autocomplete. Of course, you'll be provided with a HackerRank link and registration guidance before your interview. Now let me share my screen to demo the HackerRank experience a little bit. Cool. Hope everyone can see my screen right now. So basically, this will be the UI that you'll be seeing during online assessment. So first of all, there is a timer section where you can see how much time left for you to solve this question. And here is the question section, including all the information that you needed to solve the problem. And then you can drag left and right for better visibility for yourself. And you could also select the most comfortable language that you want to use. For example, for my demo, I'll just use Java 8. Also, HackerRank has this autocomplete feature, which is very useful. And then you could alter, disable, or enable autocomplete at the top right corner. And then we can go, and you can see this is the coding session where you enter your code. For the downside, we can see that there is test result part and also the custom input part where you could actually fill in the input. Like for example, for given questions, you'll be able to type in some strings or numbers here, and it will help you run the test against your input. And here is the run button where you can test against your custom input or all the test cases. The next part and the last part would be the submit button. When you have verified everything here, you verified all the test cases passed, and then you got the solution and the best code that you want to submit. And then before the timer goes out, and you could submit your button, submit your code. Okay. Of course, you should be familiar with all of these before you start coding. And now let's go over the sample question. I'll read it through all of these. So Amazon is building a way to help customers search reviews quicker by providing real-time suggestions to search terms when the customer starts typing. When given a minimum of 2 characters into the search field, the system will suggest at most 3 keywords from the review word repository. As the customer continues to type in the review search bar, the relevant keyword suggestions will update automatically. Okay, from the first paragraph, I can see we're basically realizing a very simplified version of the real-time suggestions for a search bar. So this is what I get, and then I know there are some important restrictions here. I'll note them down later. And then let's go over the second paragraph. So write an algorithm that you will output a maximum of 3 keyword suggestions after each character is typed by the customer in the search field. If there are more than 3 acceptable keywords, return the keywords that are first in alphabetical order. I think this is a very important part that we need to take care of. So we need to output the results in alphabetical order, and only return keyword suggestions after the customer has entered 2 characters. This is also very important. Keyword suggestions must start with the characters already typed. Both the repository and the customer query should be compared in a case-insensitive way. This is also very important. Let's look at the input and output. So input, we input the method consists of 2 arguments. You can see it in the method signature here as well. So first one, repository, is a list of unique strings representing various keywords from Amazon review comment section. And another one called customer query is a string representing the full search query of the customer. And the output from the signature we can see is a list of strings, and it should be in lowercase, where each list represents the keyword suggestions made by the system as the customer types each character of the customer query. Assume the customer types characters in order without deleting or removing. If an output is not possible, return an empty array. Okay, so without going into the examples, I want to sum up some of the important points that I collect during reading the first few paragraphs here. I'll take some notes. So first of all, I remember a very important thing is that when given a minimum of 2 characters in the field, the system suggests. So the input, output, let's say output starts to emit after the input has a minimum of 2 characters. The second thing I noticed is that when given the minimum 2 characters, the suggestion, so the output, is at most 3 keywords. So the output list contains at most 3 keywords. Let's move on. Also, you remember that if there are more than 3 acceptable keywords, return the keywords that are first in alphabetical order. So this is also very important. Output list, output in alphabetical order. And then one last thing, very important, is that both the input repository, the list, and also the string, we compare them in a case-insensitive way, is what I get from reading the questions. In case-insensitive way. Okay, a little bit more about inputs and outputs. Maybe just note them down here. So the input, the first list repository is a list of unique strings. But so if it's unique, we don't have to do special dedupes for the string, for the list. But again, they didn't say it's order, so we might have to do some ordering later on. And another thing for the customer query, it's a string representing the full search query of the customer. Let's say it's the full search query. And let's go over the output a little bit more. So we're returning list of strings in lowercase. So I feel like this might be very important. Then we don't consider deleting or removing any characters. And also, one last thing is, if an output is not possible, return an empty array. I guess it's return empty list here. So looks like the default output is an empty list. Okay, so these are all the important notes that I've taken before going into the examples. Hopefully those will help me under the example a little bit more. So input, we can see this list of keywords, repository, mobile, mouse, money pod monitor mouse pad, we can see they are unique strings, but then they are not ordered. So this is what we get from reading through the question as well. And then customer query mouse should be the full search query. The output is mobile money pod monitor. So it looks like a list of strings. For the first list is the first line, second list. So there are 4 lists here. So let's read the explanation a little bit. The chain of words that we will generate in the search box would be MO, MOU, MUOUS, and mouse. So that makes sense because we note down that the output starts to emit after the input has minimum of 2 characters. So it makes sense. And each line from output shows the suggestions, which are in alphabetical order, and also in lowercase, as we note down. Okay, so we kind of like understand what is expected from us, and now we want to consider how we want to solve this problem. First thing that comes through my mind is we could actually do it in a brute force way. So we can traverse through the customer query. For example, like we loop through for MO, MOU, MOUS, OUSE. For each string, we loop through the repository list to find out all the keywords that matches this query string, and then we add those in the final results. So that could be one solution. Another thing I can think of, maybe we can do some binary search related stuff, or even use try. But here, I'll just demo the brute force solution here. Okay, so first of all, I want to create a default return result, which is an empty array, an empty list. So it should be a list of string. Let's call it results. Create a new list. Here you can see you can use the autocomplete, and then you could also like check the given suggestions or any documentations for the data structure or the object that you're using. Okay, so this is the default result, and then let's just return the results here to remove the compilation error. Okay, so first of all, what I want to do is to make sure that we don't propagate the invalid inputs into our code. So what are the invalid inputs? So if repository is null, or if repository length size is 0, or customer query string is null. Or customer query string length equals to 0. We'll return the result directly. And now that I'm thinking about it, because we only start outputting when the input has a minimum of 2 characters, so if the query string, the full query string length is actually less than 2, we're not outputting anything here. So instead of checking the length equals to 0, I think I should be checking length smaller than 2. Or we should output an empty array. Okay, cool. So we dealt with all the invalid inputs, and now we want to continue. Because we know that we have to output the list of strings in alphabetical order, and then comparing inputs in case insensitive way, I think we want to normalize the inputs a little bit before we do other actions. So let's do it now. We'll create a list of string called normalize repository. And I'll use Lambda function provided by Java 8, which would make my code more tidy and easy to look. So for here, what I want to do is to first convert it to lower cases. Sometimes the autocomplete is not working. In HackerRank, it's a little bit hacky here, but let's continue. After I convert them all to lower cases, I want to order them. I want to sort them in alphabetical order now. I'll use collections, Java's collections.sort to sort the normalized repository. Okay, so after the sort, we can say that we have an ordered list of repository where each string is in lowercase. Cool. And now we can move on to traverse through the query, customer query. So I'll just start a for loop here. I equals to 0, I am query, customer query. Was. And now what will be the query string for each loop? So string query string. So the query string should be a substring of the full query, full customer query. Query dot string. String start index and end index. And now we should be reminded again. One important thing is to start output with minimum of 2 characters. So for here, instead of using start from 0, we should actually start from 2. Because for Java's substring method, the start index is inclusive, but the end index is inclusive. So if we start from 2, the first query string should be substring for the first 2 characters in the string. Okay. And now we want to collect the list of strings which matches this query string. Let's call it query results. For this query results, I actually want to create another private method here because I feel like there will be a little bit more if we write it into the main method. So private static it will return a list of string. Let's call it find matches. Or let's call it find query results. So what should be the input of this private method? I feel like first of all, I need to include the list of ordered repository. Normalized, called it normalized repository. And then we should input the query strings here, the query string here. Okay, cool. So all we need to do is just loop through the normalized repository to see which are the keys that starts with the query string. So I'll use the Java 8 Lambda function here again. Okay. Filter out. So we'll just filter the ones only starts with the query string. So entry dot starts with should be the query string here. On query results. To list. Let's return the query results. Okay, so for here we need to use the method that we just created. After we got the list of string query results, we add it to the main results, the list of strings. Query results. Okay. I feel like I missed out some points here. But we can run the tests as much as we want, actually. So I'll just try it out, and then I'll figure out what I missed out. I'll just use the example here. The input, the repository contains mobile, mouse, honeypot, monitor, tab. Yep. And the customer query string is mouse. Okay, I'll just try it out with my custom input to see what I get for the output. There are compilation errors. Let's go back. This is line 50. Record. Oh, this should be collectors. Still show some syntax. So this is a little bit tricky for HackerRank, where sometimes you don't expect to see any compilation errors in your code, but then you're still seeing those red marks. What I usually do is to switch between the language and then switch it back. Hopefully they're blocked. Okay, cool. Let's try running it against the custom input again. I'm still seeing, okay, it's the spell error. Let's use the autocomplete. Sure, all good, try again. Okay, compile successful, and let's see our output. Okay, looks like we are outputting five keywords in the first list, but we actually need maximum of 3 results, which reminds me that I have notes here. I should actually limit the number of strings that I added to the list. So I'll go back to my private find query results list. So instead of return the whole query results, I'll return a sublist. So definitely from 0 index to index, it should be max-min. So either we'll find the smaller number between 3 and the query result size. Okay, this should solve this problem, hopefully. Let's run it again. Okay, cool. Looks like we got the desired results, at least for the example. And now let's try out all the test cases. Okay, looks like we have passed most of the tests, but we're still failing for 2 tests. Please note that for test case 0 and 1, you should be able to see the full input output. But then for other test cases, they're hidden test cases, so you have to print or log statements to help you debug why it failed. So for me, what I'll do is just print out the inputs first. I'll use system.out.println here. Quickly print out the input repository. Also, I'll print out the customer query. Let's run it again to see what's going on with these 2 failed test cases. Okay, so it looks like for these 2 inputs, we're outputting an empty list. But as we read through the input, the customer query AB should definitely match ABCD, ABCCD, and also this capital letter. So this reminds me again that we compare both inputs in case insensitive way. And it reminds me that I did the caption to lowercase for the repository input, but not the customer query input. So that might be the root cause. Let me just add the lowercase here. And then let's check the test case 11 also. So feels like it should still be missing the caption to lowercase for customer query string. So hopefully, let's run this again. Hopefully it will fix both of these tests. Okay, cool. Seems like we have passed all these test cases, and if you want to clean up your code, for example, just remove these. If you want to remove these notes or you want to leave them, the notes here should be okay. And then the last step you can do is to submit the code. Cool, so this is the sample questions that I want to walk through. And now let's jump back to the slides. Cool. I think we can start with the Q&A sessions. Any questions you have for the coding question or in general?
Cool. Good job, Erica. Walked through, found some good problems. So let's bring in a couple of questions we've got. So the first one I will ask you is, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the Q&A and we'll get those up to Erica in a second. But the first question I will ask you is, what is work-life balance like at Amazon, and what is the culture like in general?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. I can feel that a lot of people are really interested in this topic. So as you know, that Amazon is a really big company, and then we have so many orgs in the company. So each org could actually develop and build their cultures. So for me, I can only talk about for my team and our org. So I would say that we have a really good work-life balance here. Our leadership team has made sure that our team build a culture where we actually work hard and play harder. So that means our managers would not ask us to do additional work during weekends or like after work hours. They want us to actually improve our efficiencies during work hours, solve all the problems during work hours, and then don't leave everything at home. Especially for this special time now, where we really have to work from home, where the work and life, like there's not a very clear boundary between like work and life. So I feel like this is a really good culture for our team, and I feel like this is a trend as well for the whole company as well. Yeah, if that answers your question.
Awesome, thanks. So we've got a couple of questions coming in from the audience right now. So we'll go to a question from Vandana. The question is, what would be the best way to prepare for the Amazon code review? So I think essentially, what's your recommendations for preparing for an Amazon code test?
Yeah, this is a really good question, which would help a lot of people in the session as well, I believe. So in my opinion, what you need to do is to build a very solid computer science foundation. For example, know about the basic data structures and algorithms, know about how to solve a coding question, like very basic coding questions. When you have all the solid background, then you can start maybe working on some different kind of coding questions that you can find online. I know that there are a lot of sample coding questions online that you can find. So basically, maybe just focus on list-related questions or like binary search-related questions, such as that. So when you build up all the technical foundations, another thing you can prepare is based on your work experience, your industry work experience. Find out some good examples which could actually show your ownership, show your learning, be curious, show your customer obsession, some of the important things that are not specifically for technical interview sessions, but also for like in general show that you are a good developer. Yep, that would be my suggestion.
Awesome. So the next question here is from Siddharth. The question is, essentially, what is the difference on the coding bar or the coding expertise required between an SDE interview and a data scientist or business intelligence engineer?
I see. So I would say for the question that we run today, it is for the software developer interviews. And in terms of data scientists, I feel like we have other bars for other roles. I think for data scientists, we might have we will have coding questions, of course, but we will have some other rounds which will test your I would say, like, because you're a data scientist, so you might be asked for about more specific or more deep knowledge about your field. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I've actually done a couple of those interviews as well. And Erica's totally right. There are deeper, like for a business intelligence engineer or data scientist, you might have a question about designing a database system, et cetera. There is still a coding bar. You are also correct that it's not quite as high as it is for SDE. For example, you're not going to get a system design interview, and you're not going to get any sort of class level interview where you're expected to create a appropriate breakdown of classes. So that's kind of a big difference in the two interviews. So the next question I will answer, this one is from Amandeep. The question is how to prepare for a system design interview. What are good resources to preparing for a system design interview? Yeah,
this is a very good question for industry hires. So for system design questions, both for myself, when I prepare for those questions, I will go to YouTube first, search for some of the very basic examples. For example, design YouTube or design Facebook, design a library system. I would search for those topics and I'll listen to those YouTube talks. And then I'll also search online for all the materials that I could find for all those topics. That is the way that I'll prepare. Anything that you want to add, right?
No, that's a great answer. The next question is from Warren, and congratulations to Warren, who correctly pointed out that you had used collections instead of collectors.
Nice.
So the question from Warren is, what is the criteria used to review this code test? Is it code speed, code complexity, code clarity, etc.?
Yeah.
And I can answer part of this if you want to.
Okay, I'll talk about online assessment first. Because online assessment will use HackerRank, where you could actually submit as much time as you want. And then for online assessment, I think all we check is your code could pass all the test cases, and then you're submitting your code in the time limit. So I think that's all we check for online assessment. But in terms of in-person interviews, or for now we're doing online interviews, but then for those interviews, we'll actually use text editor kind of thing, so you will not be able to compile or run tests against that. So at that point, I think what the interviewer will check is, first of all, the cleanness of your code. Make sure that you don't make compile like the collector mistake during the interview. And of course, the time matters at that time. If you could come up with a brute force solution first, and then you could come up with some optimal solutions, or just simplify your code, that would definitely stand out among other interviewees. Of course, at that time, your interviewers will ask you to do some time and space complexity analysis. That's also one criteria. And of course, in general, the cleanness of your code. And if you're asking verification questions, is also one of the things that we'll be looking at, because the question will not be like super clear. So we will actually intentionally make the question that is not super clear. We are intended to have some clarification from you guys to make sure that you understand the problem correctly. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and then just to add on the online coding test, essentially we're looking at the test cases that you passed. Like, did you pass the test cases? Occasionally, if you didn't pass all the test cases, or maybe you passed none of the test cases or something like that, we can take a look and see how close were you to finishing up. Was it just like a couple lines of code away or something like that? So the next question is from Gokul. The question is, are SD1 interviews, so new college hires, are they asked for system design? Should I prepare for this in my interview?
Okay, I can answer that. In general, we are not asking system design questions for entry-level interviews. So in general, you don't have to prepare. You just have to prepare for 5 or 4 rounds of the coding assessments.
Okay, and this is going to be our last question. This one is, what should I highlight in my resume to get a call for an interview?
Yeah, a very good question. So I'll speak in terms of myself. I remember when I was finding a full-time engineer job, what I put in my resume is, of course, my educational experience and all the project-related experience. I also highlighted all the technical, all the computer science or technical competencies that I have, or the technologies that I know. For example, all the coding language that I know, all the computer science applications, or database software that I have used. Those might be very useful as well. And of course, at the beginning, I think a very good summary to summarize who you are and what have you worked on, or what have you studied on, what position are you interested in, would be very important as well. And then also, I think it would be nice for college hires or other interviewers to at least shrink your resume into one page, so that we can find all the very important points from your experience.
Cool. So that's actually all the time we have for Erica. Thanks so much for everything you did today. And thanks everyone who participated and asked questions and came here to watch. We're super excited that you all showed up. And we're going to post a slide at the very end that just tells you how to apply with Amazon if you're interested. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a nice day.